This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Do you hear that whisper? That little voice that tugs at your heart, telling you to start living your best life. If that sounds like you, then now is the time to join Registered Growth. It's the only place online where you can connect with and learn from great coaches with different areas of expertise. Why live another day not believing that you're enough, not seeing all that is possible for you? Why live another day dimming your own light? Nectar is the perfect place for you to discover the real you and uncover who you're meant to be. Life is a journey that we are not meant to walk alone. Nectar gives you a nurturing and supportive community to walk with you on your journey. Start living your best life and see what is truly possible. Come join us at nectargrowth.com. You know you're worth it.
Ride.
Since the dawn of email and the internet, we've heard the term hacking being tossed around. Now, there's a new term, biohacking. We're hacking your body. It can seem a little scary, like something out of a sci-fi story. So what is it, and how can you begin to implement elements into your health routine? Joining me today is Brittany Ford, a registered holistic nutritionist who focuses on supporting gut, hormonal, and skin health through nutrition and biohacking. Welcome to the roller coaster, Brittany.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
So biohacking, it's a fairly new thing, or at least to me it is. So what initially drew your attention to it, and what is it?
Yeah, great questions. So the way that I define it is holistic self-care for optimal health. And so basically what that means is that instead of only looking at one pillar like nutrition or fitness, biohacking really looks at everything you do in a day and everything in your life that can either make you healthier or unhealthier. So it looks at stress, your environment, your mental health, your relationships, everything really, and kind of says, okay, where are you now and where do you want to be? And how can we bring in hacks or tips or tricks or habits that can kind of get you towards optimal health? So it's very, very holistic in nature, which is why I love it. And which is exactly why I was first drawn to it. So even though I am a nutritionist by trade, I found that through my own healing journey, only focusing on food and nutrition wasn't really enough in order to make me feel better and actually be able to show up 100% every day. And so I kind of went down this rabbit hole of what can I do in other areas of my life? You know, of course, like fitness is a big thing, but beyond these ideas of just eating healthy and exercise, like where can we go with our health day to day?
And, you know, I've long been a believer that we can't categorize and compartmentalize our health. We're a whole being. You can't just say, I'm going to deal with this one part without knowing everything that fits into it. And I look at the same approach when it comes to, you know, when you see a doctor, you know, that sort of, I'm going to give you this pill so it fixes this problem. And I always go back to, but why is that there? What's causing it? It's not just one thing. There's got to be a bunch of things to it. But the challenge is always figuring out what's the root cause.
Yes. It's very difficult. And it takes time. It takes energy. It takes money to figure that out, especially when you're dealing with things that are, complicated, or you have symptoms that could really range and kind of be anything, like if it's maybe fatigue and you're tired every single day. Well, fatigue can be related to so many different things. So figuring out what the root cause of that one symptom is going to take a lot of time, and you're probably going to have to work with a professional to figure that out. Um, and I totally agree with you. I think we're in this age, I think it's getting better, but I think there's a lot of like quick fixes out there, both on the natural side and the not natural side, right? So like here, take this like antidepressant drug to no longer feel a certain way that you're feeling. Now, of course, they had their time and place, but maybe that's not the right solution for everybody. Maybe we do need something that's more holistic and kind of looks at your biology and maybe why you're feeling like that and takes a step back. But also on the natural side, there's a whole bunch of companies and there's a bunch of movement that's, you know, like take this supplement and it's going to fix this one thing. And it's the same principle. It's just, you know, making it sound better because it's like natural. So yeah, I totally agree. I think things need to be a lot more wholesome and holistic in nature.
And it's really confusing because, you know, depending on where you're looking, you know, like recently I've said, oh, you know, the cure all is like, you got to take your vitamin D. Everyone, especially here in Canada, everyone is vitamin D deficient. So you got to take vitamin D. That's going to fix everything. And then you go somewhere else and they're like, no, 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 no. It's magnesium. Magnesium is the source of everything. You got to take magnesium. And you're like, well, what in the hell do I do? Like, where do I even start?
Yeah, no, totally, totally. I've had times where I've gotten so frustrated with that whole narrative that I've completely stopped taking everything, because you kind of get fed up with this idea of, I need to be taking all these supplements and in what dose and what brand and what is absorbable and what is working. And it's almost easier to not do anything. And I've had clients who've said the same thing. It's like too overwhelming. So I'd rather just opt out in general. And that's tough because there's so much misinformation out there, and information also kind of contradicts each other, right? Like you read one blog post that says you should be taking this vitamin D. You read another blog post that says, you know, maybe you don't need that much, or maybe you actually shouldn't be taking it. And so the average consumer is kind of left with this idea of, where do I go from here?
Yeah. And that's exactly the situation. I mean, you talked about people opting out, but is that really a solution, or are you just shooting yourself in the foot? Because like as women, and again, I'm following somebody else's narrative here, but I've always been told that, you know, women have to be very careful when it comes to calcium and magnesium. So
Yeah.
opting out, is that smart, or is that just, you know, sort of throw my hands up in the air? I'm tired of dealing with this.
Totally. It's totally the latter. And it's almost like giving up, you know? And so that's part of what I try and help my clients do, is kind of this sense of education and what do you actually need to be taking based on where you are today, where your health is today, regardless of what everything else around you says, right? So maybe we go and you get your vitamin D levels tested and it actually comes back that you're quite low. And so based off of your test results, then we make a recommendation of a certain amount of IUs per day. And then we retest in 6 months and your results are actually better and your mood is better and you're feeling better, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a big component of biohacking as well, is like this idea of quantified self, where you get tested and then you do things to improve your results and then you test again. So you actually have a lot of data that shows what you're doing is working.
So on the topic of tests, because we're both in Canada, so, you know, healthcare systems are very different certainly between Canada and the US.
Yeah.
What about getting the test? Because I mean, at least where I am, we have a doctor shortage. I have not had a family doctor in about 8 years now.
Wow.
And I have to, fortunately, I'm going to assume I'm healthy. Otherwise something would have gone wrong by now. And I have sort of a low grade thyroid problem, and I have to rely on a walk-in clinic to get those tests. Now, the last time I had my blood work done, it was about 2 months ago. And I basically said to him, I'm like, dude, I don't have a doctor, so just test everything under the sun. And I kind of expected them to call back and say, okay, yeah, your iron's low, or this is a problem. nope, I didn't hear anything. And I know for sure, at a very minimum, they needed to call back and tell me, well, here's your refill on your prescription. Nothing. So like the test, can we only get that blood work through a doctor, or can other professionals requisition that blood work?
Yeah. So and I've had a lot of testing done. I've done like very minimal actually through doctors. We are lucky enough that now we're kind of in this state where there's so many at-home test kits. And those are the ones that I always use myself and recommend to clients, family, friends. And there's at-home test kits for like testing your gut health and your microbiome. There's ones that test your hormones. There's one I just recently did that was minerals and vitamin levels, and also does like a biological age test. And so there's so many now that literally just get delivered to your house. It's either like blood work, saliva, however it's done. And then like each has its own process, and then you send it back and they send you your results. And I think that is much better than going through a doctor, generally speaking.
Yeah, because, I've been told that in certain tests, there's an acceptable range of what a doctor would say, okay, well, you're within the acceptable range, so we're not going to do anything. But then you talk to other sort of nutritionists like yourself, right, and they're like, no, the range should be much, much tighter. And therefore you are falling outside of it.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So what I do when I get my results is I will take them and I will search them, and I will search optimal range. So not normal, optimal. And you'll find quite a lot of data on this, a lot of blog posts, a lot like from different professionals. And that's who I compare my results with. And it depends as well on the company that you go through for the testing, because some of them will actually tell you and say like, you're in between the normal results, the normal Canadian results, but based off of our lab work and all the tests that we've seen, we actually think you should be here. So sometimes like companies will actually tell you themselves what they think your levels should be, like optimally and not just normally.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, when it comes to, because I've seen, and actually I have friends that have done that swear by, the vitamin IV. It's not transfusion, it's a dosing or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Is that something that we should just do, or do you really need to know what your levels are first before doing something like that?
So I actually haven't heard of that company, but I'm assuming, so it's just like an IV drip for different nutrients.
I think so. Yeah. Like I have a friend who swears that I want to say she gets vitamin C and something else.
Yeah.
Doses. Yeah.
Maybe like glutathione or something.
Yeah.
So IV can be very, very helpful, and it depends on what's going on for you. So for example, last year, especially during 2020, I went through a very stressful situation, and I went to my naturopath and I got an IV of B vitamins, and you just sit there for half an hour and it's like hooked up to your blood, and it's like effective almost immediately because it's going straight into your bloodstream and it's replenishing the nutrient levels that are low. And vitamin B, there's multiple vitamin Bs, but we use them very quickly when we're stressed, but they're also related to our energy. So we actually have to have a good supply of them in order to handle stress and feel not fatigued every day. And so I think absolutely it has its time and place because it's so effective, and it's such a high dose too. Like the amount of vitamin Bs that you would take in an IV is way higher than you would take in an oral supplement any day. And same with vitamin C. Yeah.
And like, if you get the IV dose, then does it, how long does it last?
Yeah. So it depends on what's in it, right? So, boosting your vitamin C levels, I mean, it depends what you're dealing with as well, but maybe you would do it every few months.
Okay.
Whereas like vitamin Bs, you tend to use it up very quickly. So maybe you would do it once every 4 weeks, you would do it more often. So it's very individual and depending on what your health, like where your health is and what you're going through personally.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one complaint that I hear a lot from women, especially women in my age group, because I'm in that sort of perimenopause, menopausal stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear a lot of my friends talking about sleep or
Right.
the lack thereof.
Right.
And I mean, I'm going to say for me, for 3 or 4 years now, I have intermittent insomnia. And I try so many different things. But I mean, perfect example was last night, went to bed at 9:30, woke up at 3, tossed and turned for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, went back to sleep for another couple of hours. And that's just, it's become my new normal, and it sucks. Because and I always joke, and I call it the witching hour, that you wake up somewhere between 1 and 3, and then you're awake for that hour and a half, and then you kind of go back to sleep. But it's not that restorative sleep. Like, I honestly, I can't remember when was the last time that I consistently just slept. And I used to be like an 8 or 9 hour person, go to bed out cold until 6.
So a couple things. I don't know if you've ever searched online about the time that you wake up at night and what this means. So in Ayurvedic medicine, which is like Eastern medicine, and I'm not an Ayurvedic practitioner, so this is just from what I know, from what I've read and heard. When you wake up every night, it actually says a lot about what's going on in your health and what could be going on in your life. So I remember I went through a period where I was always waking up at 3 o'clock. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, why 3 a.m.? Like, what does this mean? And then I did some research, and it turns out that hour is actually associated with the liver and where it is cleansing at that time. And so then I kind of took that route of trying to heal it through healing the organ that was associated with that time. So even if you don't do anything, like, just take a look and search it up, because it's actually very interesting and you might actually find alignment with something like that. But aside from that, I would say I would really look at your sleep routine in general. So like from a biohacking standpoint, does it actually feel like nighttime in your home when it's nighttime, right? So like, are there bright lights on? Is the TV on? Is it loud? Is it noisy? Does it feel like nighttime, or does it feel like stimulating and energizing in any type of way?
No, definitely. I'm like, lights out. I even have on my phone so that, when it gets to about, half hour before bedtime, my phone silences. I don't get notifications or anything. I go to sleep. I make sure the room's cooler because of my age.
Nice.
I do tend to get warmer in the daytime.
Good.
I have my lavender mister on. Like, I've tried it all.
Everything.
And you're still
Good.
like, but I had heard about the liver cleanse in that time. So I'm curious to hear, what are some of the things that you found helpful in cleansing your liver?
Yes. So at the time when I was dealing with that, like waking up at that time, it was quite a long time ago. And I was not living a healthy lifestyle like I do now. As in, I was just drinking way too much alcohol, and it was just a different time in my life. And yeah, I had to take a hard look at things that are toxins that are like making my liver sluggish and not operate fast enough. And luckily, the liver is one of the organs that replenishes very quickly and can heal very, very quickly. So it's not like the damage that you do, depends how long you do it for, but you are able to kind of fix that and heal from that. So for me, what I did at that time was I looked at liver flushes from a herbal standpoint. So, and there's many different ones on the market. You get like tinctures, which work very well, that have like, dandelion root in them or things like that, that can really help support the liver and kind of get it moving better. But in terms of like, nighttime and like having your environment feel sleepy and tired, like in my place, like all of our lights go red. So we bought light bulbs that go red at night, and we have candles, and I wear blue blocking glasses at least 2 hours before I go to sleep. So it's literally like, it's so red in here. It looks hilarious. I don't know what people think when they walk by on the street. Like, what are they doing at nighttime? I don't know. But yeah. And then also like reading before bed. I turn my phone off at 7:30 every night, or not off, but like no notifications come through past 7:30, and really creating that routine. I think like, sounds like you have a pretty good routine already, but really solidifying it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on is, because I really don't think that as a whole, we're paying much attention to this.
Mm.
And I know in particular, it affects women, and that's EMFs.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
can you maybe share what the role of EMFs play on women's health?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been doing quite a bit of research into this recently. And I heard of EMFs a few years ago, which stands for electromagnetic fields, if anybody's listening who doesn't know. And basically the idea is that all of the electronics that we're surrounded by, like our computer, our phone, cell phone towers, anything that's really plugged in, ideally, like even Bluetooth, can have an impact on our health because of the frequency that comes off of it. Now, the human eye, we actually can't see the frequency, obviously, but that doesn't mean that it's not impacting our health. And so I kind of went down this journey last year of starting to think about being in front of my computer all day, or like having my phone in my pocket, and like, how is this impacting my ovaries and my health? Like, there's no way that this isn't having an effect. And so I did a bunch of research on it, and it's pretty profound. Like, there's a lot of research that shows how it really, really alters mitochondria function. And so mitochondria is like the energy of the cell, and it decreases how the mitochondria acts in your cell. So now this cell that was once like functioning 100%, but when it's beside your phone for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, it's now not functioning as it once was. So now it's kind of the question of, okay, we all live this online lifestyle, and I don't think that's going anywhere, but it's like, how do we reduce the EMF that we're exposed to and maintain our health? And especially as females as well. Like, I mean, I'm going to go on a tangent, but there's a whole bunch of research as well that shows how it impacts our fertility and our ovary health as well.
Yeah, and I can see the correlation between that because, as we have more and more EMFs in our environment, I'm also starting to notice more women having fertility problems. And it's just, and that's the thing, is that it's not being talked about. And in fact, I'm going to say it was about 9 months ago, our hydro company came around and they were replacing, the circle part in the middle of your hydro unit with a 5G one.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. And I actually said, I told them, no, you under no circumstances are you allowed to put that in, because my hydrometer is right below where I sleep. Wow. And I'm like, I don't need it. I don't need a smart meter. Like, it's not that big of a deal for me. And I'm like, there's no way you're putting that so it's emitting 5G all night while I'm sleeping. Just not going to happen. People thought I was a little bit crazy. They thought I pulled out the tin hat. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Until somebody can tell me that it's 100% not a problem, if I don't need it, like, I can't choose not to work at my laptop. I can't choose not to have a cell phone. But something like that, I can make that choice. And, it's these little things that where you can choose, you make the choice that, is maybe leading better towards your health.
Yeah, no, good for you. That's really, really important. And I totally agree. Like, I'm not pushing for an offline lifestyle because like my whole business is online, right? But it's, again, like at nighttime, not having your phone in the bedroom, or putting your phone on airplane mode, or always having Bluetooth turned off, or, not using like Google Homes or Alexas that are constantly running and can constantly pick up when you're talking and use Bluetooth, right? Like it's just making these healthier decisions. And I very much feel like EMF is the new smoking in terms of, 40, 50 years ago, everyone was smoking and there were like doctors on ads that were smoking. And you're like, and then now we look at that and we think, what? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
But at the time it was like, no, there's nothing wrong with tobacco. It doesn't cause lung cancer. It's fine.
Oh, smoke one and be relaxed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
what?
But wait a minute.
But younger people today don't know that. I mean, it's the same thing where drinking and driving didn't used to be taboo. It was a given. And, that was kind of the same time that smoking wasn't an issue. So there's definitely a period of time where we weren't making wise decisions.
Of course.
You could also argue that we're not doing that now either. So,
well, I think it's interesting that, infertility is on the rise. So infertility impacts 1 in 8 couples now.
Holy.
And that stat has increased since 2010 era, which was when smartphones became a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the iPhone, I don't know what version of the iPhone came out that, and like probably one of the first ones. And I'm not saying there's like causation, but I'm saying
there's
there
a
probably
correlation.
is a correlation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for infertility, now, of course, EMF is not the only thing to consider. There's a lot going on in our society that's probably causing that. But I think we're naive to just dismiss it and think that we can live this very high tech lifestyle and not have repercussions on our health.
And well, the thing is if you look at it, it's the layering of all these little things.
Yeah.
On its own, it may be just one slice, but then you keep adding them all up and you've suddenly got this big brick of problems that you're dealing with.
I know.
So.
And it's hard. And so I don't know if you saw, but I'm developing EMF blocking underwear for women.
I did.
As part of a solution for this, because the solutions right now are really male focused, and biohacking in general tends to be male focused. And when I went to go buy underwear that was going to protect my ovaries and my fertility while I'm, working at my computer, it didn't really exist. So then I was like, okay, but there's such a demand for this. And so many people talk about it, like, where is this product? And so that's why I started developing it. It was because I need it. And I know other people need it too.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Now, Brittany, as we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah. I think we touched upon a lot of good things. And I think what I really encourage people to do is to take ownership of your health and responsibility for your health as soon as you can. Yesterday would have been the best day, as they say, but even starting now of like, maybe today you go home and you look at the EMF in your apartment and you make a different decision. That still counts and that still helps. And so every healthy choice we make accumulates and does matter. So I encourage people to continue making healthy decisions every day.
And Brittany, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is biohackingbrittany.com, and I'm on social media at biohackingbrittany. Definitely reach out if you are interested in, working together as a client, or if you want to get on the wait list for my EMF blocking underwear, you can do that on my website as well.
Excellent. If you are looking to connect with Brittany, make sure you check out the show notes. I will have all of the links in there. And Brittany, thank you so much for joining me today.
This has been awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Roller coaster. Ride, ride.